and welcome. You're tuned to The Leg Up, your weekly thoroughbred preview podcast, and it's the first Group 1 of the season, Tarzino Day, at what might be a little bit of a wet Hawke's Bay. Good morning to Stephen Hunt. Bit of rain about Steve, apparently.
Yeah, I think that's the major talking point in the last 5 to 6 days. Has been in the office anyway, Thaddeus. Good morning to you and everybody. But yeah, it's been the trend in the last 3 to 4 weeks leading into our feature races / meeting, and no diff when we come to Hastings. We'll talk about the track conditions in more depth in the next 5 to 10 minutes. But look, I think the fields will hold up. The undercard in particular, there's strong / big numbers. Those 2 rating 75 races at the back end of the day are very, very strong. And when acceptances was declared on Wednesday, there was a high probability it was going to be a heavy deck. So all the owners, all the trainers knew where they were going to stand come Saturday. So that should hold up the fields in terms of numbers. There'll be the odd affection, but yeah, look, I think overall the field should hold up, but it's still going to make it a very sticky day.
No deductions though, so that's handy. We don't have to worry about any of that.
100%.
Yeah, okay. And last week, Wanganui Guineas, wasn't it?
Wanganui, a couple of nice 3-year-olds. She's dominant, was impressive, beating the boys in the Guineas race. Cut the corner and pulled away in the last 100 or so. YOLO was a real big go. Old-fashioned plunge, YOLO. Hit a PB when performing that winning performance early in the card at Wanganui. And Horse of the Year awards also on Sunday. Yes. Probably all going back-to-back as Horse of the Year. Our very own Aidan Rodley, Media Content Award. Yep.
That Michael McNabb interview with Mick Guerin was, I say emotional, but quite touching and quite
just raw,
good stuff, wasn't it? Yeah, I loved it.
It was his first premiership, obviously, so accolades to him. A couple other awards. Maven Bell won Juvenile of the Year. Imperatriz, 3-year-old of the Year, so, a big night, apparently.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some coverage of that on track side 1 as well, the racing awards at some point, so that'll be something to look forward to. Also something to look forward to is our man Brendan Popplewell sitting at Hamilton studio. Good morning, BP. I know this is a time of the year you enjoy, and not just the NRL finals as well. Good morning.
Yeah, it's a great time of the year. Good morning to you guys as well. And yeah, the first Group 1, it has finally arrived. And when you get through those winter months, you're always looking towards how far away is it till the Tarzino? When will we start seeing horses trialling to get ready for that first Group 1? Well, it's on the back doorstep now. And yeah, you're right, Stephen. Look, trainers have known for a good period that this was going to be a heavy surface. This hasn't bucketed down with rain on Wednesday and we're left with a track that's not going to come back. We knew last week that this was going to be a heavy surface. The rain was always going to hit. And now we have to work out what type of heavy 10 is this going to be. We know it's going to be heavy 10. That little bit of rain is quite crucial to the race meeting, I think, just to maybe try and loosen this track up so they can get through it and it's not a sticky, gluey surface. So that's a key component to the day. Look, overall, I think it's going to be a very hard betting day. There will be some favourites that won't like the track conditions and are looking for better footing but need to get their campaigns underway. So there's an opportunity for those that love to play their exotics, either through trifectas, first falls, or the quaddies, to explore that on the first day of the carnival. There should be some really good value throughout the program.
Yeah, we're thinking a nice big wide late quaddie BP potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I know that the Tarzino is one of the legs of that quaddie, but if you wanted to be a little bit extravagant and maybe look to add a couple of other runners there outside of the top 2 favourites, look, you will be rewarded if you found something outside of Imperatriz or La Creek, who really do dominate that market. But look, it's just good to have the carnival up and running. And we really are into our spring racing now. So, yeah, I can't wait for the day, despite where the conditions will be sitting.
Yeah, absolutely. You haven't got Paul Mawadi sitting up next to you there? I can't find him down here.
Where is he? Where's the big man?
What's he doing, Steve? Paul? Hamilton 1 week, Auckland the next.
Random guess. Is there golf involved?
We've lost them completely. I think Martinborough and some golf might be involved, so nice for some, as always. BP, we'll come back to you. Give us your Maidner of the week.
Yeah, let's have a look at a maiden of the week where I've gone to the Matamata race meeting and I identified this race despite track conditions, and I think just with how things might have panned out of this race, because it just looks to be a race where there's so many chances. Look, the horse who won the race was extraordinary from back in the field, looped them, came to the outside fence and won the race in Battle Sound. Look, there's a horse in the Tangerine that's very unlucky. Our producer's got a share in that horse, and believe it or not, and he's not too happy that we're actually showing this as the maiden of the week because Opie's got off and said it should have won. So, look, it's had no luck whatsoever. Not a bad pony, very good through the trials, backed it up race day. Bolano, who did have a top run last preparation behind Fellini. That horse has finished into 3rd position. True Planet, maybe wait for True Planet to get on a better surface. Did have market support. Zircon was a horse who was there in the Cambridge Stud Yellow and Black Checkers. Was also a runner that came in with some form. So it just looks to be one of those races where you want to be following a number of horses out of the race, and keen to mark it down as the maiden of the week, race 2 out of Matamata on Wednesday.
Yeah, impressive on debut, Steve. To be fair, to do that on debut is impressive anyway. It does look like they got along in front to the 600 metre mark, set it up potentially.
You can see the figures there to the 635.65, running home last 638 and change, which is very slow, and just over 12 lengths of the last 600 below par. The overall class rating, not too bad, just a fraction below par in terms of 2.5 lengths, but you compare it to the 2 following 1200 metre races, which I always like to do. In comparison, the last 600 Battleground race rated 6 lengths slower than Hero Worship Maiden, the last 600, and 8 lengths slower than the Gimme Your Lovin' Maiden as well, which were the 2 1200 metres events to follow. So in terms of individual splits on the race winner, Battleground recorded the 4 fastest last 600, so that's a lot of merit in doing that, knowing there were some older, more experienced horses at the back end of the card. But as good as it was on the eye, the win in particular, I can give a little bit of merit to, but just as an overall racer, I do have a slight question mark, just in comparing it to the 2 1200 metre races that followed. But look, there's a few horses there. You've got to trust the eye. There's a few horses there. BP mentioned the Tiake horse that was unlucky. If it got the right split, it may have won and put in a decent figure. But just on Battleground pedigree by Bolado out of an O'Reilly mare, and Tiff and Co. You go back a few dams, you got Mrs. Moss, who was a very high standard broodmare in the UK, left a number of group winners. You got Pushy, was a very fast speed UK mare in her day, and it is also the Tavistock family line as well, so a family that is definitely moving.
Yeah, okay, for sure, and to do that on debut anywhere, I think suggests there's a heap of improvement around battle sound for BP's Maidner of the week. Steve, we want to get to the Bay. We've got 4 races we want to have a look at, but we want to talk track conditions before we talk anything, because it's going to be a talking point on the day. And you can talk over some lovely track shots that were shot this morning, I believe. So just what's happening with
That's fantastic. Look, a little bit overcast there. They've got the odd shower forecast later on this afternoon. And also in particular on race day, as BP alluded, we just hope that rain potentially does fall on race day.
Does come,
maybe
yeah,
before race 1 and not during the races. That would be the ideal scenario. It's been a heavy 10, as we've already touched on. It's been a heavy 10 for the last 10 to 14 days at the Bay. As the majority of the country, we've had a lot of rain, in particular in the central districts. The easterlies hasn't shied away from the Bay, so that's mean it's been very cold and very wet along the east coast. So, yeah, heavy 10, that's what we're going to be playing. We know that. It's just depending on how that surface holds up. Is it going to be holding? Are we going to get the odd shower on race day? The last Hawke's Bay meeting was back on the 21st of July. The rail was out 10 metres that day. It goes back into the true position, so there'll be some nice fresh turf, 3 or 4 metres from the rail. But again, it'll be intriguing how that track plays, if there's any bias, but that will unfold after the first 4 or 5 races.
We just don't want that gluey sort of surface ideally now. With that.
As I mentioned, you probably want the rain to hit before race 1. If it's raining while the races are happening, it's really going to chew up the track and interfere for day 2 and potentially day 3. So ideally, showers early doors, and then it kind of fines up and just loosens up that surface.
Okay, fingers crossed for that. Let's start with the Group 1, gentlemen. Race number 9 on the card. The Tarzino Trophy, headed up by a dominant favourite, no surprise here, Steve. Yeah,
we posted $1.50 in Imperatrice. She was around that $1.60 mark when futures closed early in the week. $1.50. There's some nice single bets on her, and when it comes to futures betting, she did fluck at $4. That was her peak price when it came to all-in betting around Imperatrice for the first Group 1. But $1.50, and that's not stopping customers, Thad. She holds 2 times more money than the second elect in La Creek at $4. Again, original price was that $4 mark. Helena Baby opened 14, just done a couple of turns there, $12. Spring Tide, 15 out of turn to 16, just a little bit soft there for the local trained galloper. Demonetisation holds the call at $18, or holds its price from the original call of $18. Dark Destroyer has been well played, in particular in the top 3 and top 4 market. a lot of people suggesting a potential 1x4, 1x3 kind of play around Dark Destroyer. Currently sits at 21, and Jodalyn Gale 41 with Rose and Power, and Green Luck is your ranky at $81. So best lead I can give sits with the mare Imperatriz, even though she's deep into the red, $1.50.
Yeah, pretty short, BP, no surprise. I'd suggest if we were on a dead six, you know, you'd be probably lapping up the $1.50 and be happy with it. But, you know, heavy 10, we've got the La Creek factor. It's an interesting little field, isn't it?
Look, it is, isn't it? And with how good she was in the Foxbridge Plate, you know, you can actually entertain taking that $1.50. And as you said there, Stephen, you're still taking bets on the horse. So, look, it's seeing is believing, isn't it? And look, you just got to look at this and go, wow. I mean, it really was some incredible performance by Imperatriz on the you know, a heavy surface at Te Rapa, and blew away her rivals, and look, put away some tidy horses in behind, and she was just clearly the best on the day, no matter what the track conditions were, no matter where she was in the run. She's very likely to get a very similar sort of run on the weekend, isn't she, in terms of how this race might pan out by the time we get to race number 9. She has a wide barrier draw. It may not be a concern if she is to be covering a little bit of extra ground. She was just travelling so sweetly here for Opie on the point of the bend. Yeah, there was a little bump there with Tavi Mac, but she was just gliding through the ground. And we know that she's better when she gets on a surface where she can really bounce off it. But boy, that was a win that vindicated her to be the short price favourite for the weekend. I guess the other little red flags that we have in this race for the weekend is that this is going to be a different heavy 10 to what Te Rapa is. We know Te Rapa is a sandy-based track. They were running, you know, almost heavy 9 like times there at Te Rapa. So what does that mean for tomorrow's race meeting? Well, we're hoping it rains first of all, and if it doesn't rain, does it become a more gluey surface? So that poses a threat. I'm just trying to find reasons why we don't want to be diving into $1.50 and looking for other options. So that are things I think we have to bear in mind with Imperatriz. But look, she picks herself with what she's done in that race, with how she's performed last season. $1.50. There's not a lot of meat left on the bone though, is there?
No, not a heck of a lot. That Foxbridge win was pretty impressive though, Steve, and the numbers sort of backed that up, didn't they?
Yeah, it did, and I think BP's right. I think they're going to ride her in a similar fashion to what we saw in the Foxbridge. She's drawn an outside gate. I look at the map here, I've got Rose and Power's drawn the ace. She looks to be the leader. Helena, Baby, La Creek, they're the two intriguing runners when it comes to the map. I think there's a battle there, who wants to sit outside Rose and Power, and the horse that elects to just defend that position probably goes back in third in the rail. And that gives the opportunity for Opie Boss and Imperatriz to go potentially one out, one back. And if it's La Creek who just gives up that spot outside the leader and sits in that trailing position, then Opie can dictate around La Creek and when it potentially can make the move. So it is fascinating. I think there's going to be genuine speed for the first 200 to 300 metres. Horses will look to find their spot, and then I think the tempo will slacken midsection and then rev up around about the 600-700 metre mark from home. But yeah, I've got Rose and Power, but the intriguing part in this map is Helena, Baby, La Creek. Which of those two sit outside the lead? La Creek is drawn inside Helena, Baby, so maybe she has more of a say. But yeah, I think if in an ideal world, La Creek would be, or the connections around La Creek would want to be sitting second outer. Okay,
just on that Foxbridge, I mean, it's pretty hard to potentially see some of these horses turning the table, so the La Creeks and Helena Baby sort of come into it a little bit by default, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be backing anything that came out of the Foxbridge to beat Imperatriz. I'm looking for the other form lines. The La Creek's obviously first up. We'll see a couple of her trials visually shortly. Helena Baby, who's got no form at Te Rapa, so there was no reason for her or for him to go to Te Rapa in the Foxbridge. He's gone terribly there, and his figures back that up. So they've decided to just hold the button on Helena Baby after his win in the north. Springtide's an interesting runner. You go back 12 months ago, BP. Look, he had a foundation where he was running through the winter. He hasn't raced since, let's have a look at his last run. I think it was at least 6 or 7 weeks ago. July, Springtide. So there's a little bit of an unknown quantity there. It was with Chrissy Banbury. It's now with John Barry. I've got no doubt it's had jump outs on its home track, Springtide, but it did SP at around about $6 in this race last year on the back of what it was doing in the winter. So it'll have track conditions you'd think to suit. We know it can operate at 1400 at weight for age, but I just wanted to see a little bit more money for Spring Tide at $16. Original price was $15. We know John Barry can win this race off a high SP. We saw that a few years ago with Call Sign Mav before he was exposed to the horse he is. But where do you line Spring Tide? Because there is that X factor, and also Dark Destroyer also brings a different form line.
Yeah, look, you're right there, Stephen, about Spring Tide. I think this is a horse that it's just hard to get a line on, isn't it? Because the runs was back in July, went to the Topol trials and was actually late scratched there. And then, of course, has then gone to the synthetic trial most recently out of Awapuni. Purely on what the horse did last season, 12 months ago, leading up towards the Tarzino, you'd have to say he's a chance. And with the wet track conditions, now that he's trained there, it's found him hard to work out. He's the enigma for me in the race, actually, is Spring Tide, because you can sort of get a bit of a line on everybody else with what you've seen, either through La Creek's trials, through Helena Baby, through the winter, demonetisations, first up run, and the Foxbridge Plate. Jodlin Gal looked good through the winter. So I just feel as though he's the one that's, and Dark Destroyer, good last season as well, could go big, fresh up. He's the one I'm just not too sure about, but also very wary of.
Let's talk La Creek, BP, because she's touted for a big season.
Yep.
She's a second favourite behind Imperatrice. She has been well back to do this, and look, she's been trialling up enormous, hasn't she?
Look, she has, and you know, the reports out at the camp is that she is, you know, she's ready to go a big race. She really is. Look, this was a lovely trial from her, wasn't it? Well, both of her trials were very good, but here at the Topol trials, which was a key point for them, that they wanted to be trialling here and then have her ready for the Tarzino on the weekend. Look, she's a high-class mare. We saw her through her 3-year-old season, just how good she was. Yes, she was a beaten favourite in the Derby, but she still ran a terrific race to finish into second position. The world's her oyster, and she could really fly the flag in Australia for us as well, La Creek. I guess the question marks for the weekend is a first-up run, a gut buster on a really heavy surface, if that's the case at Hawke's Bay, and those are the things you've got in the back of your mind compared to, say, Imperatrice, who's having her third run in this preparation up against maybe some hardened horses that have raced through the winter. But every time you keep thinking that, you think, well, hang on a minute, her class could override all of those things as well, so hence why she's at a $4 quote. I mean, I'm a massive fan of La Creek, and if she wins the race, you'd sit back and go, yeah, well, no surprises there. Look how good she was last season. Look how well she's trialled. Look how well she's come back. I just guess that first up run on a heavy track is one that's sort of holding me back from making her my top selection in the race.
What are your thoughts on La Creek, Steve? I mean, she's the world's her oyster potentially. I mean, she's right up in markets in Australia for later on in the season, so you know you'd be expecting a bold run.
Yeah, I priced her a little bit under the $4 mark, $3.80, so there's no real genuine meat on the bone there at a $4 price. But saying that, I think Imperatrice will hold its $1.50 price. You may get a $1.55, $1.60 on race day, but I think that closing SP will be no higher than a $1.50 on Imperatrice. And on La Creek, I think with the connections, how it's been presented, a heavy deck, that's not ideal first up, as BP's mentioned. But if they can, even if they don't win on Saturday, but they can be within, say, 1.5, maybe 2 lengths to Imperatrice, that's good enough going to 1,600 metres in 3 weeks' time to suggest that it can make that improvement on a better track and stepping up to a sweeter spot at that mile, because I think with La Creek, 16, potentially 2,000 is her range, 1,400 just below where they probably see her as hitting her peak. So she doesn't have to win to suggest she's a winning chance on the middle day, but if she can be within maybe that 1.5 lengths to Imperatrice, if she does get beaten on Saturday, I think that's good enough and enough positive energy to move to the second day with some confidence. Helena Baby, I know you've been a fan, BP, of Helena Baby. Everything's worked out for this horse. It's got the track conditions, it's got the form leading in, albeit in lower grade races in terms of open class of V weight for age. But I just want to talk on Darren Dennis, because he goes a little bit unnoticed at times. He's riding Helena Baby and he's done the majority of rides of late on this galloper. His last 50 rides up to $10, up to that $10 price mark. So horses that are in commission and betting, 12 wins at 24% at a 48% profit.
Right.
So when he gets the opportunity on a horse that's within $10 in that top echelon in the marketplace, he's doing the job, and punters are not with him.
Okay.
You could suggest.
Yeah. D. Dennis, Helena Baby.
48% profit if you stick with him. Helena Baby doesn't quite fit in it as yet, being a $12 shot, but he's not far off. He's not far off.
What do you think, BP?
Look, I think Helena Baby is very much like Tabasco sauce. He adds a lot of spice to this race, and I think he's a runner that will. I think he'll apply a lot of pressure to the race, Helena Baby. I really do. I feel as though that's his best go in life, and we know that how he's won some of these races, like the Alpanaki Cup, a couple of times, where they've just applied the blowtorch to the race and have blown it to bits. Now that's a different class, of course, to Group 1 racing, but they have an opportunity to play that card on the weekend on a really heavy surface. That's why I think the pace will be genuine in the race. Now, of course, we've seen him good enough to be able to be placed in this race in 2019 when run down by Melody Bell. I feel as though he's a runner that can play a part through the carnival, Helena Baby. I'm sort of looking for him going beyond this race of 1,400 metres and even getting to a race like the Livermore. I thought he was a sneaky at $41 in the Livermore to run out a 2,000 metre trip, even if he can run that type of race. Because you look at the top of that market in the Livermore, the first 4 or 5 in that market, more than likely not going to be there. So just feel as though he's one of those horses, if he can run well here and then back it up into the 1,600 metre race, I think there's no reason why he can't go to 2,000 metres in a race like the Livermore, and even if there was that little bit of rain about. So I think he's a genuine chance in the race. He will help the tempo with Rose and Power, drawn low, and then Lark Creek might even just take a spot in behind that pressure if these two horses want to sort of go at it and really apply the tempo to the race. If there is to be strong tempo like that, look, Demonetisation is a horse that can run top 4. I think this horse is 210 top 4, terrific money. He is so underrated, this horse, so underrated. He's got a great second up record, and what's his biggest thing in his favour? It's a wet track. He gets through heavy track conditions. He looked a picture at Te Rapa in the Foxbridge Plate, and he backed it up by running into 3rd position. So what he gets on the weekend, he gets 200 more extra distance, he gets a track condition that he'll like, he runs well second up, and if they go very hard up front, boy, he can run into the money. He really can. I think 210 top 4 is great money, and you could entertain having a bet on the place. And I think he falls into the same category as Dark Destroyer, because Dark Destroyer can be that same sort of horse as well that can be running on at the end if it is to be strongly run, because we know Dark Destroyer can get through these type of track conditions. I'm just running with Demonetisation because he's had that one run under his belt, and he can run at the elite level. We've all seen him run some terrific races through the summer. When he ran 4th in a Zabeel Classic, it was a rock hard track on Boxing Day. So we know how well he can run at the top level. I think he's a great place bet in top 4.
Yeah, okay. Just on Dark Destroyer, while we've got you there, any word out of the camp? There has been a good nibble for it, so they're obviously expecting the horses forward enough.
Yeah, and look, he's won a race on wet ground over 1,400 metres, hasn't he? What was it, the Bone Crusher as a 3-year-old Dark Destroyer, and he's a horse that excels when he can get his toe into the ground. That is a key factor for Dark Destroyer, and we saw that when he won the Rough Habit leading towards the Queensland Derby. Look, his trial was okay, and he's gone the right way since then, has Dark Destroyer. Small field, first up over 1,400 metres, expect a good staying type to be closing strongly. So you can understand why there's been some nibbles for him, but maybe more so to that top 3, top 4 market. So yeah, he's certainly a live chance with how he's come up this preparation.
Yeah, okay. I see the BGP power play boost there as an action for Imperatriz to win and Dark Destroyer top 4, $4.50. So what does that tickle your taste buds, BP? Dark Destroyer top 4, Imperatriz win 4.5.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think those sort of bet types is where you can actually make some money. If you're liking one of the favourite runners, Imperatriz or Lark Creek, and then go searching around for a top 4 runner. Look, obviously you can do that through first 4s, but also maybe through the power plays just to try and make life a little bit easier too, or try and find 2 runners to finish in the top 4. I mean, there's going to be a host of different power plays there for us to play into, but if $1.50 doesn't get you going, well then maybe there's an opportunity of trying to play the race in your favour with that horse winning with something else.
Is that the way you'd attack the race? There's nothing else? You're with Imperatriz, I take it?
Yeah, I am. Look, in terms of a quaddie, I will have a little specky save with Lark Creek. I think you have to. I would hate to be knocked out of the quaddie and Lark Creek wins. She's certainly on a quaddie ticket. But my main bet in the race is demonetisation and to run top 3 and top 4. I think he is a cracking bet to run in the money if he backs up what he did in the Foxbridge with those conditions to suit, and he's come on since then. So yeah, that will be my bet.
Okay, I'm certain that they'll have demonetisation in those power plays when they're released. Steve, final word on this year's Tarzino?
Yeah, look, I think it's overall a settled market personally, and I think that's helped by futures coming to a final field market. I thought there's no bet for me personally at this stage, but I suppose if the second horse La Creek gets out more than the $4 mark, somewhere closer to $4.50, then maybe a play. I don't know if that will happen, but at the moment it's a fairly settled market with not too much fat.
Okay, it's going to be an intriguing race nonetheless. This year's Tarzino, $1.50 Imperatriz, so she's going to be awfully hard to beat. Second race we're going to have a look at, gentlemen, is the HPB, I'll get that out, HBPB, Thoroughbred Breeders Association Gold Trail Stakes for the fillies, Steve, over the 1,200 metres.
There's been 3 or 4 played early doors, Thad, including the favourite Pacific Dragon for Michael McNabb and Tony Pike, 380 into 330. Sans Doute, also well tried in the first 24-36 hours, holds the original price at 380, but clearly almost matches dollar for dollar in terms of Pacific Dragon cash. Bestseller, always well back commodity at $4 in that third line, hard in that third line. Mazzolino, something had to give because of weight of money on the 1, the 2 and the 7. Mazzolino, $5.50 out to 7. Hanalei, first up for Paul Richards, $7.50 out of turn to 8. Sangrita, 1 start for 1 win for Bryce Newman. An $11 price, hasn't budged. Miss Nico Bell, 21 out to 31. Arrowette, 26 out of 41. And Aparima, 26 out to 41. Maybe BP can help us out there for the debutant for Guy Lowry. But she is that rank price with Arrowette. But look, in terms of a lead, Pacific Dragon fractionally just in front of Sans Doute, and that's purely on the firm 380 into 330.
Okay, they haven't made it easy for form analysts around the country here, BP. Try and tie this one together for us because they're coming from everywhere here in the Gold Trail.
Yeah, look, understandably too. This is a super race. Both these 3-year-old races are great races, aren't they, to look forward to. Well, first of all, Pacific Dragon. I mean, this is a horse who's having her 11th start on the weekend, and you look at the races she's competed in. I mean, she's what was she relegated in the Eclipse Stakes? She ran 5th in a Karaka Million. She was good enough through the autumn and winter period to be winning races like the Ryder Stakes and the a couple of starts ago, and then of course the Winter Championship Stakes race at Ruakaka. So she's a winner. And she's a horse that comes in with, I think, a really good form reference with how she ran in the Northern Breeders when finishing second and wanting to do a few things wrong. And with her having those number of starts, she has, I think, a clear advantage on some of her key rivals in the race, including Sans Doute, who's only having start number 2 to the races. She's a horse who knows how to go to the races and get it done. So I think she's an obvious favourite. But I also think the race itself, though, with how you line up the bestseller Sans Doute performances out of Taupo. I mean, both of them were really good. I actually thought that the first 3 in that race were terrific because the 4th favourite is Mazzolino, and she was a runner that was coming underneath horses in the inferior ground and did a great job, I thought, to finish into 3rd position, and how that race sort of panned out because she jumped well, and then the Tiaco runners came over and got in front of her, and that means she got a little bit of a shuffle up and got into a tricky spot, and then still did a great effort to finish strongly into the race, to finish into 3rd position with how strongly they went up front, and that meant they'd set it up for a horse like Bestseller. Look, I'm a big fan of Bestseller because of how she ran through her 2-year-old preparation and how she's come back. And that Taupo Fillies race is a race that stands up, doesn't it? Each year when they hold that particular race, it's knocking on the door of being a black type race, really, with how each and every year that race holds up throughout the season. And yep, things panned out for her in that race with what happened, and she was able to get the clear run down the outside with pressure up front. But she's a horse on her home track on the weekend that has to be highly respected. So I find it hard to really nail down one horse, but I'm trying to use that Taupo race as a leverage, and then you look at Pacific Dragon with how well she's run throughout the season so far.
Yeah, okay. Well, hopefully we've got that Taupo. I think we might have that Taupo race. A bit of vision around that Taupo race, Steve. But this is the race BP was referring to here with Bestseller and Sans Doute. How did this stack up, I guess, as a race?
And it's stacked up okay. It's what it's required to be winning the Gold Trail. You compare it to the Cambridge Breeders, which Pacific Dragon bounces out of, who ran second and behind Lickety Split. It's probably just under 1 length inferior, this particular race showing at the moment at Taupo. So you've got to remember a lot of these horses were either making their debut or first up, including their winner and Bestseller. You look at the sectionals, it did really suit Bestseller to finish over the top of them. They went quite hard for their, to the 600 metre mark, well above par, and then ran home 6.4 lengths below par to the 600. So, yeah, no knock on any horses bouncing out of that race. Really what's required in this race, as I mentioned, the Cambridge Breeders didn't rate that highly, a similar overall rating to what they performed up at Taupo. So, yeah, look, she's got the chance there. I'm just a little bit concerned about the map around Bestseller. She's not going to get the speed that was found at Taupo. In fact, I thought Pacific Dragon gets an uncontested lead here. Look, she may not have the upside or the raw ability against some of the oppositions here, the likes of Sans Dude and also Bestseller, but she's hard fit, as BP mentioned. She's been running right through the winter. They're having a roll of the dice here, or they're chucking the dice for a chance of black type and winning black type form around Pacific Dragon, and she's got track conditions to suit. Michael McNabb will have options from a whitish gate to come across, and I think he can control the race up front. I don't see too many challenges in the first half of the race, the Pacific Dragon. So on that score, I've got her on top, and I had a favourite. I marked around about a 26% chance, 370, 380 quote, Pacific Dragon. So she's a little bit skinny from the original price, what we call smart money in the first, 36 hours on Pacific Dragon to get her price into 330. But look, this overall race, you would have seen a completely different market if it was on a better track, but you've got to play what's presented on Saturday, and being a heavy 10, I think that's advantage to Pacific Dragon.
Yeah, okay, so you're suggesting Pacific Dragon wouldn't be favourite, something like Sans Duke?
Yeah, I would have had Sans Duke fave on a...
Yep.
On a
dead or better.
Dead, or you know, a 5 pentometer reading of around about 5 or 6. But you know, with the track conditions, Sans Duke, I know it will benefit from its first up run at Taupo, but it's going to be tough conditions there. I want the fittest horse for the majority of the races up and down the card, and that sits with Pacific Dragon and also on the map. I'm playing the map here around Pacific Dragon and Michael McNabb. We know he's in a purple patch of form, Michael, and he can judge races at the back of the field, but also he's just as good up front when controlling his speed. So that's why I've got Pacific Dragon on top.
BP, talk about sort of the 4th, 5th and 6th favourites for us. Mazzolino comes out of that Bestseller race. Hanalei, we haven't seen in a while, but did look impressive, and also Sangrita's 1 from 1 for Bryce Newman.
Yeah, oh boy, that was a win, wasn't it? I mean, that was a really good win on a testing track by Sangrita out of Woodville. So it's a case that this horse has to step up to this type of grade, and we'll talk about that with a couple of other horses that are in a similar boat. And the other feature, of course, the Colin Meads Trophy. Look, I really like Mazzolino because I think Mazzolino might be a horse who can also go forward. We saw her jump and run in the stakes race at Te Rapa, the Waikato Vets race, went from a low draw of 2. And it took a long time for Lord Cosmos to really draw that horse in. So there's an opportunity, if Pacific Dragon wants to go forward, that Mazzolino can sort of jump as well and Pacific Dragon to follow it over. I sort of saw Mazzolino from barrier number 7 trying to overcome that draw and being positive and try and back up what they did. I guess the query is about her going on this type of surface because we're not sure. She's had 2 runs to the race. They've both been on a 5 and a 6 with tomorrow a 10. And I think that's the key thing around Pacific Dragon is that we know that she's going to be able to handle track conditions. We know that she's tough, she's hardened, and it's the 11th start on the weekend. So I think that's why we keep coming back to Pacific Dragon. Yeah, Hanalei, tricky to try and work out and sort of get a real judge on that trial at Avondale, but the horse showed good potential last season. It was good enough to win a Wellesley Stakes, ran 4th in a Matamata Breeders. And yeah, Miss Nico Bell, well, that horse was beaten last time out of Taupo as well, behind Bestseller, but there was a margin between her and the rest. So I'm looking towards Pacific Dragon, but Mazzolino might be just that one at $7. Happy to take a little risk on if she can handle the track conditions and can find that forward and running spot.
Okay, do you just see any of these horses featuring, Steve? The Mazzolinos, the Hanaleis, etc.?
Yeah, question mark around Hanalei. Look, you wouldn't be rushing to the Totalizer back and on the back of its trials leading in, but you've got to respect the juvenile form around Hanalei. But being first up, I just want to go slightly against horses that are resuming on Saturday with the track conditions and the way they profile. So Hanalei will just be a watch and see and how she progresses, potentially working back from a 1,000 guineas. But look, Sangrita, even though the overall race rated inferior to where it needs to be. Again, she was having her first start, so there's natural improvement. Her individual closing sectionals were very strong, but the overall race probably needs to find 3 lengths around Sangrita, v the likes of the Pacific Dragon, Sans Doute and Bestsellers and Mazzolinos. But yeah, Bestseller, just concerned about the map. And it's interesting that BP hasn't got it in the top 2 as well, Bestseller, even though it won well at Taupo.
And was its Maidner of the week.
It was its Maidner of the week. So I think what we're saying is that it could be quite a tactical race up front, and that might be the undoing around Bestseller, who potentially could be as good as any horse in this race. Yeah,
absolutely. BP, you just surmise it. Does it fall into Pacific Dragon's lap this year's Gold Trail? A little bit.
Yeah, it does. It does with everything we've spoken about here, but. Look, I'm keen to have a little savour on Mazzolino as well if she can cop the ground. Yeah, Bestseller bounces out of the right race, doesn't she? But so does the horses that finished second and third too, and behind Bestseller with how that race panned out with Sans Doute and also with Mazzolino as well, finishing into 3rd position. So I think that's overall a very good form reference. Just going to be a top race, it really is. I've got Pacific Dragon on top with a little bit of saver money on Mazzolino to maybe more around that place market, but we'll be looking for some power plays surrounding Mazzolino and certainly Pacific Dragon.
I'm sure the team will be able to get those organised for you, BP. It sounds like you're Pacific Dragon as well.
Yeah, I don't mind as a play on Saturday. There's not many that I'll be playing, but purely at this early of the week, but to see how the track conditions unfold. But with Pacific Dragon, I thought just purely on the map, McNabb can control the race. Mazzolino, as BP said, that could potentially go forward. They could sit 1 and 2, and between the two of them really control it and make it a sprint home on testing track conditions. And those back markers might be just floundering when looking to pick up at a vital stage. So yeah, I like Pacific Dragon purely on track conditions. As I mentioned, this market would be totally different on a better surface, but I'm playing the track and the map.
Okay, so it's BP style by the sound of it in this year's Gold Trail. Half time, boys. Intermission, we've made it halfway in the leg up, and you know what that means. Even though he's not here, I believe we have another popular edition of Minute with Moate.
Hi, I'm Andrew Scott from Maidner, New Zealand. Would have been a famous All Black, but unfortunately horse racing got in the way, and I thought it'd be far and more glamorous, and so I went down that line, but I was wrong at an early age, and here we are now at the Cambridge Trials midweek.
Who has been your biggest influence in racing?
Mike Moroney and Lance O'Sullivan, and they've been wonderful, they're mentors and led me in the right direction.
Toilet paper, over or under?
Oh, a bit of a scruncher, eh? Plenty of it. You don't get much on the roll these days. Oh, I tell you, I was on about Free You Go the other day. I'm right there with them.
Most famous person in your phone contacts?
Brendan Popplewell over there.
He's in a few.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, look, I'm a bit of a GNR fan. Patience, you know. I can get the whistle going and everything, you know.
Lovely ballad.
Do you want a quick rendition?
Go on.
Oh, go on. Little patience. Yeah, come on, join in with me. You know the rest.
Your favourite NRL team?
Oh, the Warriors all day long. Come on, Paul, you with me?
Fantastic. Your favourite junk food?
Oh, I love a pie all day long. Steak and cheese, come on.
Union or league?
Oh, leaguey all day long.
No.
You're those poncy bloody Union fans, you know.
Your first celebrity crush?
Oh, Madonna with the cones, wasn't it?
Which player would you most like to see at the Warriors next season?
Oh, jeepers, who would I like? Oh, bring back Cameron Smith when he was 25.
Yeah, brilliant. Your favourite horse you've ever trained?
Oh, 2 horses there. Yeah, excellent. He was a superstar, and a really good horse that I didn't really get the opportunity to train long term was Aero Velocity.
Beautiful. Race you'd most like to win?
The Melbourne Cup. I think it's high on everyone's on list every day.
Has been popular. Horse we should be keeping an eye out for this season?
I reckon a horse actually trialled today, Carrier. I think she's going to be a really promising race.
Oh, Oh, thank you, Scotty. Very good effort. I'm surprised Paul didn't break into a bit of patience there. It wouldn't take him much, would it?
No, it's easy to twist his arm when it comes to karaoke singing.
Yeah, exactly right. Thanks to Andrew Scott with Minute with Moati. Okay, team. Race number 5 on the card now, and this is the Rocco Sir Colin Meads Trophy over the 1,200 metres. We've got the Karaka Million winner resuming, Steve.
Dynastic, intriguing runner. Probably up and down the card, one of the more intriguing runners. Dynastic resumes here, as you mentioned. But Opie Bosson and Mark Walker, $2.70. That was the original quote. It's been a bit of specking for him, but they're not coming out of trees early doors. The stablemate in Fellini, hard in that second line at $3. The best lead I probably can give is Pierre, $8 in a turn of $7.50. Lord Cosmos out of turn 8 out to 9. That looks to be the third stringer when it comes to Mark Walker's team. Alabama Gold, 10 out a couple of turns to 12. Golden Darcy resumes, or should I say debuts here for Sean Phelan and Ryan Elliott. Drawn the ace, 18 is firmed into 14 in that middle market. Written up, also a firmer, 26 into 16. Duncan Creek at $21 is best of the rest. So again, I think there's a little bit to unfold here in terms of shuffling and market moves and fluctuations. I don't think it's a settled market, Thaddeus. Dictated around Dynastic and where that price finishes up, but Pierre is probably the best lead I can give to slight one, 8 into 7.50 in that third line.
Yeah, as Steve alludes to, Pops, this race all hinges on what you do with Dynastic here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know, because this heavy track makes it very difficult for this race, doesn't it? The most out of sort of those other the other 3-year-old race, you've got a bit of wet track form to work with. I think this one's very tricky because Dynastic, he's had a couple of trials. He's been okay in them, but certainly the Avondale trial on a heavy surface, he sort of battled on. He was in a position where he's sort of outside leader, and he's done his best to finish into, what was it, 3rd position. So, I mean, in an ideal world, heavy 10 is not his go, but they need to get the show on the road, don't they? These horses, if they're progressing towards their plans for a 3-year-old season. And Fellini's the same. I mean, Fellini's had a run at least, and it was on a soft 6, and he was very good in that race. Pierre, super win in a maiden race, is a runner that's taken a lot of interest. I know the phone's been ringing there a lot after that particular victory by Pierre when taking that out at Matamata. Lord Cosmos, look, maybe Lord Cosmos doesn't quite have the wet track credentials, has soft track credentials, but has a couple of runs on the board. That might be key for his chances in the race at hovering around that $9 mark. Alabama Gold was better last time out. We know that he might be able to play a part in terms of speed in the race. And then just trying to work the rest out, trying to work out these money moves for written up. Look, Golden Darcy's a really nice horse. I'm really looking forward to seeing him tomorrow. He will be getting some of my money. He's 18s into 14s. He's drawn low. His trials have been really good. I guess the question mark is on a heavy surface, but yes, he certainly pricks my ears a little bit seeing him in this race, drawn Barry number 1.
Yeah, for sure. There's been plenty of money there for Golden Darcy. When that Phelan money arrives, you have to respect it, or money around Phelan runners, certainly. Look, Steve, Dynastic made it favourite. I'm going to say, is there a little bit of a default favouritism here? I guess you sort of have to make him favourite in a race like this, don't you?
I think so, but will be dictated by the marketplace. We really want the punters to give us a lead around Dynastic. Opie Bosson, I'm guessing he had the choice around Dynastic. Fellini, he's opted for Dynastic. Look, he rode the horse right throughout its juvenile career. Not sure he's the easiest horse to ride Dynastic, but I think they want to get a line on him. And putting Opie on, he can go back to the stable, win, lose or draw, and get a line on how he performs. So maybe that's why Opie's on Dynastic in terms of just getting a judgment on Dynastic post-race. But at $2.70, I'm not sure where his price will end up.
Well, let's talk about Fellini, because we've got the replay there at Taupo around Fellini, and he was impressive that day, wasn't he?
It was a very good win. Rated 2.2 lengths above par. You'll see the sectionals down the bottom of the screen here. In fact, it rated the number 1 ranked race on the 9-race card at Taupo. No surprise, as this was a very good race. A lot of these horses had been black type performed as 2-year-olds and resuming as 3-year-olds. Alabama Gold was a black type winner as a juvenile. So look, Fellini, the key about him is that he has that one race under his belt, so that's a tick heading to wet track conditions on Saturday. He's very professional, one of the more professional juveniles we saw last year, and early doors as a 3-year-old. He has enough tactical speed to put himself in that neutral position or just off tempo, even though he's got a wideish gait. He can settle in a running, and then he's got that turn of foot at the back end of an event. So he's kind of bulletproof, and I kind of feel this is his race. Around the unknown quantity, with a few horses that had won maiden races or debuting, and also up against Dynastic. So if you're asking me who I'd lean towards in terms at the point end of the market, it'd be Fellini over Dynastic.
Okay, $3 Fellini. I think the other race replay we do have might be around the 1-start, 1-win in pair for the Weatherly team. Sam Weatherly aboard for D&B Weatherly, and don't worry, it's taken some money too, Pierre. As you say, 8 into 750. How did this rate? Don't know how many 1,050 metre races you'll have in your database.
Small sample size.
Yeah,
small sample size. Don't have too many at that distance at Mudda Mudda, but look, the money was on debut. He trialled up very, very well leading into this race. Pierre, probably as good as what you can see on the eye, was the last 150 when Sam just sat up on the horse. But you look at the overall figures, probably needs to find 3 lengths to match Fellini, what Fellini produced at Taupo. But again, he's only had 1 start, 1 win. He can head to that direction easily in race 2 or race 3 or start 2, start 3. But overall, in terms of maiden class, it was 1.7 lengths above par. You see their class rating. It was a real sprint home. You see there the last 636.48. Yeah, look, there's enough upside about him. He ticks the heavy track box. In terms of working back from a 2,000 guineas, which he has been spec'd at and all in betting, I want to see more. I'm not convinced yet that this horse here, right here, is a 2,000 guineas candidate. I want to see him on a dry deck, which may be in a few weeks' time. And pedigree suggests a question mark at the mile. These Preciers tend to like the 1,200-1,400 metres with a bit of fire out of the track. So as a 2,000 guineas, I just want to hold the phone at this stage, but no doubt he's a winning chance purely on track conditions and what we saw enough out of that maiden win.
Okay, BP, surmise the race. You're with Dynastic. You're looking to bet around him. What's the play here in the Colin Meads Trophy?
Oh, I think it would be very, very cautious around this race, to be honest with you, Thad. I find it very hard. I think Steve makes a great point about Fellini because look, he's a horse that can posse up anywhere, can't he? He's very much an on-speed runner, like we saw there last time to the races where he was able to pounce on Alabama Gold. I think he's got a lot of key factors for him in this race to be winning with where he sits. And maybe he's the more safer play because he's got a run under his belt, and we know the class that we've seen from him running third in the Karaka Million and those sorts of things. Then you're up against the unknown. So, look, overall, I'm going to have a small specky on Golden Darcy, top 3, top 4. I'm looking forward to seeing him on the weekend. Nothing too crazy, because there's an unknown with the wet track for him as well, but I know he can gallop.
Yeah, no doubt, by the looks of things, and the money's there to support that.
You don't have to go too far back in this particular race to find a debutant come out and win.
Okay,
She's a catch, won this race as a filly back in 2020. So it can be done if you're a little bit questionable around how debutants performed against experienced / race day performers. You don't have to go too far back, albeit that was a different track condition, but it can be done.
Yeah, okay, that's good because I would have thought, very hard for a horse to debut and win a race like this.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Okay, Pops with Golden Darcy. It's a bit of an each-way play. There'll be some power plays you can chuck in there too. If you've maybe a Fellini win, Golden Darcy top 4, maybe the answer there. You sounds like you're Fellini as well, Steve.
Yeah, I like Fellini. I think just again the sense of timing around this race has had the run under its belt and looks bulletproof in terms of the way he can be adaptable.
Okay, looking forward to seeing Dynastic return. I'll be watching that market very, very closely. As the boys say, there's a bit of movement, I'd suggest, between now and the off tomorrow afternoon. Okay, guys, last race we want to have a look at. Getting there, as always, we're tight on time, relatively speaking, but we want to have a look at race number 4. The Vet Services Equine Hawke's Bay, 1,600 metres over the mile. And yeah, nice little betting field with a few chances, the market's telling us, Steve.
Yep, and we've got an update there. Graphically, Predefer is out. Predefer is scratched, which I'm a little bit annoyed because I wanted to lay the horse, but and there was strong support for Predefer, so obviously he's come up very well on the back of his first up assignment, but you can take him out of the market. I'll update you verbally where the prices sit. Cork is now a $3 even favourite. Chase at a $4 price, second fave, who's been well backed. Sea-Jet's now $5 price. No Rock No Pop $7. Deerfield $7.50. Charm Star resumes for Lisa Ladder at an $8 price, and Lord Valentine the rank outside at $31. So pre-defer, no deductions.
Very good. I was going to say you're onto it, exactly right. So if you took the $3.60 or the $5 on Chase, etc., etc., you'll be no deductions there with pre-defer coming out BP, which doesn't make the puzzle any easier, to be fair.
It doesn't, because he was wet track and all those sorts of things with him was not going to be suited, was it, for pre-defer, and hence why Mr. Huntley was very keen to lay the horse. Look, I think Cork is a runner that has very good wet track form. What we do with Cork is you just pretend that it didn't run last Sunday, because it was just a horse that got lost in a 15-horse field, was it? 16-horse field on a track that was an improving track condition, where this race, only 7 runners, and it's a heavy 10. So I'm just happy to try and pretend that race never happened for Cork on Sunday, because her form, as we know, has been superb through the winter, and running that great race in the Opanaki Cup over 1,400 metres. No Rock No Pop's an interesting horse. Now, this horse ran a really good race here at Hawke's Bay last season over 1,600 metres, and that was in the wide upper breeders and behind Cinerama. That was on a soft 8, slow 8, soft 8. Yeah, soft 8 track condition. And as I said, just a runner that operates at its best form here. If you're looking for something at a little bit rough, and it's hovering around the $7 mark, and has had all victories on this course. So I'm liking Cork. I thought $3.60 was a nice little play, but with what we've seen in those first and second up runs from this runner.
Yeah, okay. No Rock No Pop loves the joint. I see. Yeah, right. BP, all 4 of its ones at the Bay. No Rock No Pop feels like might be a sort of a race for a No Rock No Pop now, but Cork will be hard to beat on a heavy track.
Absolutely. We've got to keep the faith. We held the horse 7 days ago. It obviously needed the run. There was no intent out of the machine in terms of the jockey. As BP alluded, it got a long way out of its ground, Cork. It was heading into that race at Te Rapa on the back of a 5-6 week freshen. And obviously it had been scratched in the central districts a couple of times between its last run and Te Rapa. I love the 7-day backup on any horse that races on Saturday on testing track conditions. If you can find a horse who's on a 7-day backup, I'm keen to go with, and that's where Cork presents itself. I think it's an underrated stat when you're finding horses on a very testing track on the quick backup. Cork, I think it can put itself in the first 2 or 3 in running. We've got speed around Deerfield. No Rock No Pop will look to go forward. I don't think there's a huge amount of speed. Look, Deerfield will dictate it up front, as he did 7 days ago. Chase is the little enigma in the race in terms of will get back, will want the track to play even and come down the outer. Be well respected, because we know it can handle the heavy track conditions. But yeah, I'm strong with Cork. I was strong with it at Te Rapa. Wish I knew the info, but look, it didn't drift remarkably in price. It was around that $5.50 mark at Te Rapa, but there was just little money for it, and that was quite telling.
Yeah, okay. BP, good old Deerfield. Good to see him back to his best last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? And look, the horse won't know.
Not really.
True.
Be any secret or more, please.
Obviously
got touched up there. Look, 56.5. We'll run. We'll sit forward and running, and we'll try and bury them, Deerfield, and as we've seen in the past and what we saw on the weekend just gone. But yeah, Cork's a bet, I think, at $3, and might be looking for some power plays around No Rock No Pop, or a cheeky little place bet, or Cornellas or whatever. But yeah, I'm liking Cork now.
Yeah, okay. Steve, you're with Cork, obviously.
Yeah, and it's got Sam Spratt. She jumps on the horse. We know she can get the horses out in a decent time frame out of the machine. So I think there'll be a lot more positive. The keyword intent from this Saturday to last Saturday around Cork. So okay. Yeah, I've got it as the horse to beat.
$3, no deductions. There you go, team, for around Cork. If you got the 360, you will keep it all day long there. Got the case of the Scotties all day long. He's got me. Righto, guys, best bet time. We'll start with you, BP, because you're our hot hand. Very flash getting the job done last week. Where'd you land?
I've gone to Ruakaka, of course. A super day of racing coming up there on the weekend. I do like Cake by the Ocean in the last race. I thought the horse presents in a really good spot for this race. Gets 3 kilos off the back, which I think is going to be a massive assistance for this horse coming into this race on the weekend. Yuto Kumagai aboard to get down to 56 kilos. Good run on Foxbridge Plate Day to finish into 4th position over 1,400 metres on a testing track. And he goes back to where he's had a really good preparation, and that is back home with Chris Gibbs, where he's won a couple of races, including this very good effort in the special conditions race over the 1,600 metres. Cake by the Ocean, for me, is my best bet.
Yeah, very good. Very flash getting the job done for you last week. Paul's not here, but he has provided his best bet. He still remains the leader in terms of return on investment, the rank outsider.
He likes reminding
in
us
terms
in the
of a betting market, if you were betting into that market. Paul's gone Le Creek as his bet of the weekend. Look, he would have been watching the trials. I think he likes the price, and he does keep his ear to the ground, Steve, doesn't he, Paul? So he's probably heard something as well.
Yeah, he's got a fair few channels to listen from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes, exactly. Man on track and track spies and clockers and all sorts, Paul. He's got a man in every port so around this stuff. So he's gone Le Creek, expects her to resume with a win. And if she's going to go on and compete in Australia, she'd expect her to go very close. $4 around Le Creek, Paul Mawadi's bet of the day. Steve, I didn't mean to get that dig in around Deerfield beating Secret of More, your bet of the week last week.
Two seconds in a row now, since the show's resuming. So hopefully one better. I'll go with Little Joe in the first at Hastings on Saturday. The rating 75, 2,000. I love this win. Not so much on the risk manager factor, but I love the performance. Little Joe over 1,600 metres, albeit it was 65 grade, but it was 3 lengths above par. It was a high speed rating that Little Joe produced at 65 grade. So got no dramas that can take the step up to 75. And you may see this horse maybe in 12 months' time contesting open class staying ranks, Little Joe. But look, track conditions to suit. The one horse I'm a little bit nervous about is RJ's Flight, who may get a cheap sectional mid-race when being on speed, but has that service there of Opie Boss and Little Joe, and I'm sure he'll be stalking RJ's Flight come the business end of the race.
Yeah, okay. We got a bath that day when Little Joe won, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
From memory? Yeah, okay.
Oh, look, I've loved the horse this whole campaign. It was just a total error/stuff-up last time.
That's hearing that little giggle through the earphones suggested that
BP got some.
Might have got
Open at $9, I'm pretty sure, didn't it?
Okay.
From
That's
memory.
a wrap up. That's 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Book giveaway. We had Aidan Rodley's book, Elite, last week to give away. Paddy Corkery got pulled out of the barrel.
Okay.
Well done, Paddy. The answer to the question was?
Melody Bell. You give us the year?
Sure, it was 2018. 2018.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, Melody Bell, the last
There's a
horse.
few entries around I Do back in early 2013. So not everybody had Melody Bell, but the majority did.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your entries. We'll come up with a few other competitions that we'll release throughout the season around the leg up, and Paddy Corkery, our winner, so we'll make contact with you, Paddy, and you are the winner of Aidan Rodley's book, Elite. Okay, team, wrap up time. No deductions, we know about that. Bonus bet blitz as well tomorrow on the 4 venues, the 2 metropolitan meetings as well in New Zealand and Australia. There's the Rosehill, Flemington, Hastings, 3 venues. All races at Hastings. You'd think I'd read this before I would. Thank you for the slide there, boys. All races at Hastings, a bonus back tomorrow. That'll get you going, BP.
Wow, that's great, isn't it? Yeah, that is. That's super. Of course, we've got the Punters Club too. For those that want to bet into it, there'll be a big betting pool there where the Hawke's Bay Racing will be running a Punters Club. You can jump online to find that as well, and some proceeds of that will be going to the Cancer Society also, so great chance to get involved there. And yeah, the no deductions, we've already seen it come to the fore there, and one of the earlier races too, if you were on any of those early prices. So yeah, plenty of reasons to get involved. Yeah,
I just found another one too, BP, which will interest you. Boosted odds. Boosted odds. 4 horses selected for boosted odds tomorrow, and I see Imperatriz is one of them. Scroll to the bottom of your race card at tab.co.nz. $1.50 was. You can have what, Steve?
$1.70 boosted.
$1.70 for Imperatriz.
So how long does this last? Right up to the race close?
Right up to the race, I believe, Steve.
Yeah,
that's
I think
right.
You're right. I think you're right. Yep.
Okay, so that'll be interesting. I think Sharp and Smart, another one, BP, if you like. Sharp and Smart resuming tomorrow as well. Do we know what price that is?
$1.75 was traded at, now trading even money at $2.
Okay, very good. So look out for those boosters. There's going to be a couple in Aussie as well, but we'll leave you to find them. Imperatriz and Sharp and Smart boosted odds, so check those out on the website. Thanks, BP. What are your plans tomorrow?
Can we multi those? Just Can we multi
Yes, you
boosted?
can. Yep.
Okay, all right. Well, there's another good thing there for punters if they wanted to multi. My plans tomorrow, and back in the studio, we've got Ruakaka to look after. So, yeah, we've got the Punters Lounge, and we're talking to all the key participants leading up towards that big day on both sides of the Tasman.
Yeah, no, 100% big day Aussie as well. Thanks, Steve. Looking forward to
Yeah,
you
cheers,
on here tomorrow.
Yep, we'll be for the first Group 1. Can't wait.
Yeah,
Can't
absolutely. Neither can I, and I'm sure you can't as well. Thanks for joining us again on the Leg Up. We'll see you in 7 days' time.